Hi, everyone. Thank you. That's very interactive. I like that. This is the spirit of this evening. This is how we imagine it. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's lecture, Global Backsliding on Human Rights Protection. We are all at risk, by Tamara Adrián. Before I go further into detail about Tamara, I would like to go a little bit into detail about Katja. Katja Wiesbrock-O'Donovan is here tonight with us from the New York-based event space 1014. They are almost as cool as Bard College. And they're working with us tonight by generously supporting this evening and the travel of Tamara here to Germany. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being here despite only being in Berlin for one day. And then you come all the way out from Zehlendorf to Niederschönhausen. It's like from the middle of nowhere to the other middle of nowhere. Thank you. So, and a special warm welcome to you. Back to the main and most important person of tonight. This is Tamara. Tamara is an accomplished lawyer, an academic, a politician with an impressive background that combines both academia and activism. She earned her doctorate in law with the highest honors from Université Paris II in France. Additionally, she holds a degree in comparative law with honors from the Institut de droit comparé de Paris and has further honed her expertise in public policy through advanced training for high-ranking officials at the Harvard Kennedy School, amongst others. Tamara taught law at undergraduate, at the master's and the doctoral levels, and did so in various high-ranking international universities. She's a prolific author, contributing influential works on civil and commercial law, as well as human rights. I will spare you a publication list. It's basically when you talk to Tamara and you address one topic, the answer is, oh, I've written about 50 articles about that. So you can look up her website, you will find everything. Tamara was elected to the National Assembly of Venezuela in 2015. She served on several boards fighting against homophobia, against transphobia, and of course, most of all, for trans equality. Among those organizations are the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans, and Intersex Association, as well as the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. What makes Tamara's work so important also here in the context of BARD is the fact that she never looks at an isolated disciplinary picture or topic, but she truly connects all the dots, both in terms of discipline as well in terms of sphere and professional worlds. At the BARD, and now please excuse my language, empire, we often refer to ourselves as a university or being a university in the public interest. With that claim, if Bard College Berlin or the Bard Empire was a person, it would be Tamara Adrián. Please join me in warmly welcoming Tamara.
Well, thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. I am honored for the opportunity talking to you, and I have been thinking a lot about the subject of the regression of human rights in the past years all around the world, because it's not the what is occurring in one single country, or is occurring in many countries at the same time. So I started to think about and trying to explain the why. And in the physics, you have this law: to any action you have an equivalent reaction. In social science, you have to think about this law too, because we think about changing via public policies, via laws, via political action, via many ways. We dream to change things in the world, and I think we are here for that. I noticed from your questions this morning that you are part of this select group of people that are dreaming of a better world and aspiring to have a better future for not individually but groupally and as a group of even in your countries or in the region. And what I noticed this morning is that you still, in this moment of your life in which you dream about those changes, but probably you are not feeling, knowing, acknowledging how difficult it might be sometimes on the grassroots. From my personal experience and from the personal experience of people that come from very difficult environments, it is sometimes easy to just tell, okay, yes, in the past 2 months I have had 45 close friends brought to jail, and they are still in jail, remain in jail. Around 20 of them are women, the rest are men. They're close friends, all. I've been working with them for many years, and nobody knows where they are. Nobody can contact them. It is easy sometimes to say that from a safe place, in a safe environment, and I am allowed to say it here, but I know that many of you cannot say it in your own countries, and suffer the risks of being persecuted, put in jail, tortured, even killed, just because, as I say, dreaming, you're dreaming about a better world. And for many years I thought, really, that once you started the movement of the wheel of change that permitted to implement a change in human rights, there was no possible regression, that backlashes didn't exist. Now I am very aware that they are here, that they are coming through to fight against our rights, those rights that were very difficultly obtained, and that costs the suffering, the tears, even the death of many people that came before. And I will be addressing in general what is happening all around the world in this moment, and then I will center my exposition in sexual and reproductive rights, and gender-based rights, and LGBTI rights, just to not to disperse my talk too much. What is happening around the world in this moment? Okay, we were talking this morning about the fact that we have 72 or more autocracies around the world, that around 80% of the population of the world lives under a autocratic system of various forms, and including traditional forms of autocracy, such as some places in the Middle East, traditional coup d'etat governments that were very traditionally in the 19th and the 20th century in many places, and still in place. There had been a coup d'etat here. Oh, because okay, and something that we think about, but we do not think too much about. And these new types of autocracies that we were talking about, in which finally we get that a democracy turns into an autocracy, having in the middle many stages to this transformation, using democratic tools. And I was saying to you that in general authors divide these cases of destroying democratic states by using the first level the term imperfect democracies. That doesn't say much to me, but not tell anyone that. On the second stage, they talk about semi-competitive autocracies, in which you have certain places in which democratic institutions remain in place, and you can have some where political parties, but in general, the autocratic system is not challenged by this local winnings. And I was mentioning, for instance, for me, the case in this moment of Turkey, that for me has become this kind of semi-competitive autocracy. And you have in the third place what I call this amalgam states, in which you have no longer division of powers, you don't have anymore the rule of law, you don't have any more free and fair elections, and there is no way to get rid of these new systems via democratic using democratic tools. No space for it. It's the case, for instance, of Nicaragua. Maybe it will be the case of Venezuela next month. In this context, see the existence of these anti-democratic behaviors, and somehow the form in which they represent themselves in the global stage. If you haven't read it, I recommend it to you. The book by my good friend Anne Applebaum, Autocracy Inc., that try to describe in a very simple way the methods that are used by this autocratic system in order to reinforce their powers, how they manage to circumvent all the sanctions that might exist, the financial sanctions, how they are acting as the mobs and the mafia. In the same way, the same structures, the same financial structures, they are copycat of what the mobs did a few years ago in order to make their money laundering. In this case, is how they achieve to manage to control the effects of these sanctions, international sanctions, financial sanctions, and how they transfer the money, how they, and it's very complicated from the economical and financial point of view. They hire, as a professor I had many years ago, a professor from Columbia University, but he was teaching at Leiden University back in that time. I'm talking the prehistorical times when I was a young student, just like you. And he used to say, they hire the best lawyers money can buy. Okay, I understand that what they do is they hire the best minds, the best economists, the best lawyers money can buy, to make them in a structure, very, very complex financial structure that allows them to avoid the consequences of the financial sanctions and the economical sanctions and all that. That's to be known from the international point of view. For you, it is very important to understand how these regimes are acting all together, how they are serving each other as support from the technological point of view, from the technical point of view, from the economical point of view, and all that. It's a very complex structure, international structure. But on the other hand, just this past year, or this year that is ending now, 2024, no less than 12 countries that I know, and in the previous year, many others, and before that, many others, have enacted laws to control civil society organizations. That comes from, not only from the autocratic systems. You can even think it's logical from the point of view of the power they have to exercise, that they will control every form of civil society organization and try to avoid for them to dispute the power in any manner, receiving funds for grants or whatever. And yes, Venezuela enacted the law, Nicaragua enacted the law, Russia enacted 2 years ago law like that, Belarus, everyone. But this year also, for instance, Peru and Paraguay. Paraguay is a very small country, run by mostly right-wing politicians, and but nonetheless they enacted this law that submits civil society organizations to the very strict supervision by the state. Consequences of that, they are obvious. Civil society as a organized actor will be less and less important in the future, because at the same time, if you are part of the organized civil society, you will know that the funds, the available funds for grants are very reduced this year, and will likely be much more reduced next year and in the future. I think this is something that has to be explored. Why, and the civil society, the control of civil society is so important for all the regimes in the world. In this very moment we are talking, in the United States, in the Senate of the United States, they have a bill that will allow the IRS to control civil society organizations in the United States. So, it is not a privilege of the Russian government or the Venezuelan government or the Nicaraguan government. No, it is now like everywhere. How will that impact the action of civil society? It is obvious. If you do not have grants, at the same time you are not allowed to organize yourself to get a banking account or to have a civil personality in order to be considered a legal person, it's very difficult to act. And it is the pre-requirement in order to get the ECOSOC status at the UN, to be admitted at the OAS, to be admitted at the African Union, etc., etc., etc. So, if we think about this process of controlling establishment of civil society organizations, and preventing them to really organize or to be legalized, I think the future is not good in the middle term. For the fact that, as you all know by now, civil society is considered to be a part with certain rights, not full rights, but they are not at the same stage that the states, but at the UN, at the OAS, and the international organisms. Civil society, organized civil society, have a voice. But in order to have this voice, you have to be legally organized. And you have to have the funds also to go and defend the rights. For instance, I haven't been able to be at the CSW for 3 years in a row. And I had been participating there in this forum for 13 years in a row. 13, 14 years until the pandemics. And it is happening to me, but it is happening to many other people that I know. We still have the same core group. We still discuss in the same core group the proposals. We still try to convince governments to encompass these proposals. But it's becoming increasingly difficult to actually be part of the process and the discussions because of the barriers that we are facing now internationally and nationally in order to internationally in order to get the funds, and nationally in order to organize as legal persons. I stop there with this with this part of the analysis. I think that you now have the picture, the big picture of what is happening. But at the same time, I've been acting much more with regard to women's rights and LGBTI rights in the past 20 years with other human rights. For cause, I'm interested in those rights. I have been accompanying many civil society organizations, not only in Venezuela but in the region and worldwide. And we have had a very fruitful and very important activity during the years. As a matter of fact, just as an anecdote, back in 2006, a long time ago, almost 20 years, we got together in Medellin, Colombia, 20 activists from Latin America in order to make a strategic plan for 20 years. You know, people say, no, Latin Americans do not think, and they improvise, and no. We agreed in a plan for 20 years for sexual reproductive rights on the one hand and for LGBTI rights on the other hand. And the plan included, of course, advocacy, the much needed capacity building, that's of the essence, but also for the first time a route of action for using strategic litigation in order to get equal rights in the case of LGBTI rights. As well as promoting legislations at the local level, at the national level, at the regional level. And I remember that the following year, 2007 already, we went again to Medellin, Colombia, for the OAS, the OAS Assembly, General Assembly of the OAS. And we got the very first resolution adopted by an international organism relating to LGBTI rights. It was the Declaration of Medellin, 2007. We started there. It was a very simple declaration saying the states must protect LGBTI person against discrimination and violence based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and blah, blah. Very simple, like 2-sentence length declaration. But it was the very first time this ever happened at an international level. And this same year, at the end of the year in New York, the General Assembly of the OAS approved the very first resolution concerning LGBTI rights. Also very simple. 3 sentences in this case. And stating the basics. No human being should be submitted to discrimination, to deprivation of rights, etc., based in his or her sexual orientation, gender identity. An expression didn't appear back in that time. That was very interesting to see how the core group acting very tightly, working together with a certain number of governments that were in favor of the rights that are actually here in Berlin, having a meeting, a summit today and tomorrow, relating to LGBTI rights. Just in a few years, we implementing this plan, we were able to get the full equal rights approved for LGBTI population in Latin America. Even long before the United States marriage, in Latin America, we had using the 2 ways, the legislative way and the implementing the use of strategic litigation. So you have equal marriage, and we get equal marriage in Colombia, in Ecuador, and in Brazil via the judiciary. At the same time, using legislation, we got equal marriage in Mexico. I will describe Costa Rica in a different part. But in Mexico, in Uruguay, and Argentina, and Chile. Civil unions via the judiciary in Bolivia, via a referendum, constitutional referendum in Cuba, and via the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the opinion in Costa Rica as of 24 November 2017, where it was stated that the right of equal marriage was a right under the Inter-American Convention of Human Rights, as well as the identity for trans people, by the way. So you have equal marriage in this moment covering, and now, in this year, they introduced the changes in these small islands of Curacao, Aruba, and Bonaire in the Caribbean. So you have like 85% of the population of Latin America covered by equal marriage. And you had it by 2017. This group of countries had these rights by 2017. The legal recognition of identity for trans people, it's also, and I come to north to south, well, it was Argentina that's established in 2012 the legal identity in the legal identity law. The recognition of gender identity based on self-perceived identification without any other further requirements. That had been introduced in all the other countries in Latin America, and nowadays you have it in Germany, you have it in Holland, you have it in one of the northern countries, in Spain. So self-identification is considered also in this same award rendered by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, again using strategic litigation. In the case of Costa Rica, it is considered to be a human right. And then you have all these countries, 24 of the 32 states of Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia. Peru, in a very minor way, via the judiciary, with many objections and many obstacles, but it happens to be recognized via the judiciary. You have certain isles of intolerance, such in various countries in Central America, most of the countries in Central America, and in South America, Venezuela and Paraguay. Those are the countries where no rights had been achieved whatsoever. Why do I talk about all this? Because all that happened because this plan, this very specific plan, was very detailed, with axis of action, with what to do if we didn't get the gain via the advocacy and getting the law and using the So we had a very strict plan of action that was followed during. Basically, in 15 years, we have had the total equality in most of the continent using this plan. Even before United States, and now it is Europe that is implemented the same measures that were implemented in the American continent. With regard to three questions that are very important. One, of course, the self-perceived identity for trans people. You go before the registry office and you say, identify as Kala, I want my civil registry to be changed in this form, and they cannot have any objection to that. The civil registry cannot object anything. They cannot request for any evidence. They cannot request anything. Just annul the original birth certificate, grants a new one, reserves the previous one, and change all the rest of the documents. It's done. Nothing. It's so difficult to imagine because that happened a long time with the case of some kind of adoptions. So it's the same procedure. In the second place, and that's very important, with regard to co-maternity and co-paternity. Because even in the United States and in many states in Europe, you have this discussion if a couple of women, a couple of men, if they can be both recognized as parents. And so in many of the states, they force to have one of the members of the couple to adopt the child So they will have two parents, but the child will have two parents, but one is by adoption and the other is a natural one. So, okay, what happened in Latin America, in all these countries? Co-maternity. A civil registry register a child of a couple of women as with two mothers. That's it. Mother one, mother two. No problem. No co-adoption, no need for any further, no, as any other family. And with regard to, and that's another discussion here in Europe and a lot of blocking, etc. With regard to recognition of the with regard to the recognition of the parenthood by two men since the very beginning, without taking any account in the surrogacy and all these problems that in our civil society world it happens to be rose by all these minds. And what will happen to the mother that gave birth and what a surrogate? Nothing. She's not in the picture. Simple. At least if they don't want to be in the picture. Because you have now cases in Colombia and in Argentina where you have two men and one woman, or two women and one man in the family recognition. Yes, world that's been changing very rapidly, and I must tell you that Latin America in this moment is at the head of these changes. We are far beyond where in this very moment and in this, with regard to this subject, most of the country in Europe are. Far away. And we have to recognize that. But there are organizations very well founded that were acting since the very beginning at the level of the UN, that were present at Beijing back in 1994, that were part of the discussions back in that time, that were the very first to use this concept of gender ideology. That doesn't mean anything. It's just the very first time this term was used was by a priest that referred to the discussions in Beijing, saying that that would have introduced in the discussions matters that are ahead and beyond the simple differences, biological difference between men and women determined by their body parts. Basically, that's what he said back in that moment. And they started together with this very fundamentalist and traditionalist priest of the Catholic Church. Remember that Catholic Church is also a state. So as a state, they are able to participate in the discussions of all the treaties. Okay. And they have their part on all that. And they are very seriously opposed in the Convention of the Right of Women to refer to gender. And they emphasize on the fact that the only thing that should be referred to is sex. Therefore, for me, vaginal fluids and seminal fluids. That's all. That's all the difference. There is no other difference according to them. Okay, and then all the stereotypes associated with and the social construct refer to gender constructions. No, that doesn't matter, according to them. And this organization, I haven't mentioned it by name, but now I do it, is called C-Family, Coalition Family. It's a coalition of organizations, very fundamentalist and traditionalist organizations, linked somehow, and if you want to see the picture, I have it in my cell phone, linked somehow to the supremacists, the white supremacist groups, and in association with, acting in association since 2013 with the neo-Pentecostal evangelical churches from the United States. What happened? I have an idea now. I wrote an article about this, but the problem is that it was not published because the other authors did not send their contributions. So I finished it last year. It's not completely updated, but it's still useful. So you can have it. I will send it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I don't think now, a year after, this book will be published. So, this organization called C-Family with other organizations started to do several things, and mainly to make regress sexual and reproductive rights. But not only in the United States, but all around the world. How they did it, how they started to do it, and how they convince a radical part of the Republican Party, not all, but this part, very radical part of the Republican Party in the United States, to encompass also this fight against this crusade, as I say sometimes, against gender. And why? Let's start by the why. Because the concept of gender as social construct refer to number of stereotypes associated to masculinity and femininity all around the world, and that prevents women to be equal to men because the application of those stereotypes, and that provokes strokes in men much more frequently than in women because of the same reason, basically. That's a very simple way to put gender. Or as I was asked in the TV once to define gender, and they started to talk about gender. Okay, in one simple sentence: burqa is gender, breast is sex. Yeah, I mean, it's a way to establish a stereotype of how a certain person must behave, must act, must dress, must be in the space, use their bodies for being in society. That would determine how, which is the status they have in a place. Sexual mutilation in North Africa of women is gender. It's not sex. Simple as that. Simple as that. But why? Why is it so important to legally, but socially it will never be possible to do it. But why it is so important to legally destroy the concept of gender. Because by doing so, they are able to re-biologize the differences. And if you strictly refer to biological differences, you are in a, what the French will say, in a cul-de-sac, in the dead end. There is no way out. Because there will not be manner to change the human relations between men and women. Because they are referred to something that has been denied, legally denied. So that is why they were very clever. And in this article I describe how they did it and how they managed to use the Republicans to introduce laws against gender in the United States, and how, for instance, they achieve having gain with regard to abortion in the United States. But now they are targeting sexual and reproductive rights at large. They are targeting contraceptive methods. They are targeting not only abortion, but also contraceptive methods, sexual and reproductive education, of course, LGBTI rights, not only trans rights, but lesbian, gay, and bisexual rights. So they try to destroy all the legal protections by simply targeting the concept of gender. And that's what they are doing. But where they are doing it, all around the world in this moment. When you see what is happening in Hungary, or in Russia, or in Belarus, or what happened in Uganda, and how the president of C family appeared nearby the organizing the public presentation of the law against LGBTI peoples in Uganda, how they are doing the same in other countries in Africa, the progression and the ways in which are founded now in Latin America, the Christian churches, the neo-Pentecostal churches. I mean, this group of churches is very particular because they want, and many of you might not know this, is that they have as ideal not only to participate in the public affairs as other evangelical churches do. I mean, because if you are rich and you produce a lot, you are accomplishing the will of God, that you will be given the wellness to the earth. That's the way of mind they have in this, to simplify it in a way. But for the neo-Pentecostal churches, they have another target. It is to have the political power. So they organize political parties, they participate in the elections, they win positions in all the states they are working at. So, and they are very present in Latin America. In Venezuela, we don't have any rights, as I told you, but for instance, they link to the Chavismo very early, and at the National Constituent Assembly back in 1999, the evangelical, the people belonging to evangelical churches represented 47% of the total members of this constitutional assembly. That's over-representation, because back in that time they only represented like about 7% of the population. Now they represent much more. They have won many spaces, and some people estimate that now they are around the 30% of the population. But back in that time they represented only the 7%. Nonetheless, they had almost the 50% of the National Constituent Assembly. That explains many of the choices made in this assembly related to family. I mean, our Constitution states expressly that life starts at birth, at conception. You know what is consequent to that. Our Constitution states that marriage is only between a man and a woman. Our Constitution states many things that are determined by traditional religious beliefs. And they have been there for all these years. But they are now very present in Colombia, in Peru, in Central America. They have been gaining spaces in Argentina. And so in Brazil, they have parties, they were very linked to Bolsonaro at the time of the elections of Bolsonaro. Even though they have their own parties, they supported Bolsonaro. So they are very active from the political point of view. That is very uncommon for religious groups in other continents, but not for these neo-evangelical churches. And they are very well financed from the United States. So, in this context, back in 2016, Trump started the fight, the first fight for the U.S. presidency, and he started to be accompanied by these groups, by the C family, they start to be very close to him. And in this article, do you read it?
I will.
No, you, not you. No, you will read it. In this article, it is only in 2020 that the political representatives, the local representatives at the local assemblies in the states started to use the term gender, the term gender identity, the term sexual and reproductive rights, and started to introduce acts, to introduce bills to try to somehow at the local level erase sexual and reproductive rights. This is how we have in this very moment laws at the state level that prevents to talk about racism, to talk about the story of racism and the fight for equal rights for Afro-descendant and other minorities in the United States. That's why we have the case that declare null and unconstitutional the protection, the quotas protecting minorities to get into the universities, and there was a case of Harvard. You have that's why you have the decision revoking Roe versus Wade and entitling all the states to either protect or not abortion in their territories. But it is also necessary to see that 400 and almost 500 of these laws target trans population. Because all the author says target LGBTI population. No, they target trans. And they target trans identities, and they target trans youth, preventing them to have access to health care, preventing them to have access to bathroom facilities, preventing them to have access to sports, preventing them to so many rights that are now deprived at the local level via these 400 and I don't know 480 I think bills. They had approved around 160 of them in all the states of Latin America, basically in the state of the South. And that you start to see how the language changed in 2020. Basically, when the assembly of the GOP is the great party of Republican Party, and they started to have these meetings in Texas, and it was Texas the very first state in including all these mentions against sexual and reproductive rights, but many others. I mean, in this document, as of 2020, they state that no person should get any right whatsoever derived from a cohabitation that is not valid under marriage. Somehow this is our term that I use it. And this, of course, they would get rid of any rights for concubines and for people not married, as well for the children. They say in this document that no child that is conceived away the marriage should have any equal rights, any rights than any other child. Okay, they are coming back to the 18th century or to the 17th century. It's not a game. They say it. I quote large parts of these documents in my article, so every time I read it, I say, oh my, how can they manage to put all this word together, one after the other, saying all this kind of imbecilities of dumb things? They are so... It's difficult. It's difficult. And now in this context, Trump won the elections again. There's no doubt that he won the elections. I mean, the American people voted for Trump. The majority, I mean, okay, populism pays in this way. And he has the control of the Supreme Court. He has now 6 of 9. He might have 9 of 9 of the judges. He has the control on the Chamber of Deputies. He has the control on the Senate now, at least for the next 2 years. He has the control, indirect control, on about 30 of the 50 states of the United States that are governed by Republican governors. In around 30 of these states, they have the the Republicans have the majority in the chambers of the or the unicameral chamber in some states, and we start to think, or at least I start to think, that whatever it's going to be implemented in the United States will be immediately reproduced in other latitudes, if not had been done before, as in the case of UK, where they are introducing rapidly various reforms of the legal system that are in general against sexual and reproductive rights, and in particular targeting, in this case, trans population. In this context, I understand the sole way to act is to, one, have conscience of what is happening, because you say no, that nothing will be happening. That will not happen. In many cases, it happens. I mean, it already had happened in the case of abortion. So we face, in the case of the United States, the possibility, because this link between C-family and all the other groups that I mentioned, it is possible, it is foreseeable even, that some important changes relating to human rights will be introduced in the United States. And the bad part of that is that for many years we have been fighting at the level of the UN, at the level of the OAS, against the violation of human rights, arguing the universality and the progression of human rights. Therefore, the fact that it is impossible to have a total regression of human rights. But the United States is now using the same arguments used by Iran or Afghanistan relating women's rights. These are local values, and I have common local values that must prevail with regard to our citizenships. Wow. Who will protect us in the future?
Ourselves. Maybe.
Yeah, but anyway, I was given this part of this conference in a talk with a group of specialists from Latin America, and I finished saying that I was not very optimistic in this moment. But the fact that I am not optimistic will not change my mind in the fact that I will continue to fight, as always, with the same force that ever used before, and that challenging times, far from paralyzing you, should be the trigger for you to be more proactive, more to think out of the box, because I think these are time to think out of the box. I was saying in a summit just last week in Washington DC, no, actually 10 days ago, I was saying that it was time again to get together to strategize in a larger way, as we did it in the case of Latin America back in 2006. We sat together for 2 weeks. Let's say the cleverest minds back in that time, accompanied by a group of facilitators, that, by the way, that was financed and thanks God by Tamara Adrián. And I always have to mention that Brazil back in the time was the founder of this project. And I believe that it is time now to get together, to think out of the box, and to make another plan for the difficult times we are going to face. Otherwise, we will not be prepared to affront the consequences of what is coming. And when the tsunami is coming, you have to preserve yourself, but at the same time you have to know what to do to save others and to do whatever you have to do to reconstruct the places that had been destroyed by the tsunami, or it happened in Mayotte 2 days ago by the cyclone. So I guess that when I was asked to put a name to this talk, and I insisted in the fact that we are all at risk, it's really because we are all at risk. Minority rights at large and are compromised. And when I talk about minority rights, we are all minorities. I'm a lawyer, I'm a minority. I'm a doctor-in-law, I'm a super minority. But that gives me an advantage anyway. But you start to see that we are intercepted by many the position of many minorities, and nobody is safe in this moment. I guess that what we're at in the world, it's one of the worst case scenario that could be imagined that could have happened in the world. The fact that we have at least 2 terrible wars that are decimated, that are killing people in a way that was not seen for decades. That the international organisms are incapable to act because they don't have the power to do it. When the Society of Nations was dissolved after the Second War, the creation of the UN was encompassed by the idea of generating a method for taking action against situations that are unbearable, that are unacceptable, that cannot be in any way supported by any population. And that if we do not act to change the status quo, if we do not act to change the things that are happening, if we do not reimagine this world, I don't know what will be left, but for certain, at least the UN and the international organism will not survive, as the Society of Unions did not survive in their time. That's what I have to say.